The Sesc Pompeia Leisure Centre, built by Lina Bobardi in Brazil between 1977 and 1986. São Paulo. In the Palmeiras district, beside 30-story high-rise housing units, strange concrete blocks with irregular windows stand alongside the workshops of an old factory. There is nothing to indicate that this is a single unit, a leisure centre for the use of commercial sector employees. It is one of the most famous buildings in São Paulo. It is known as the Sesc Pompeia factory. She kept the rows of pillars marketed by the French civil engineer François Hennebique, who was a precursor in the use of reinforced concrete at the end of the 19th century. Pillars patented in 1892 that can be found in factories the world over. But in Brazil, only the Pompeia factory is built according to the Hennebique patents. Elegantly designed pillars, wider at the base. The tie beams have alternated thin profiles and triangular capitals. They have an identical beam above them. Identical spans of 400 square meters. A modular, repetitive process performed in cheap materials and known as industrial architecture. The architect preserved the roofs and their wooden frames just as they were, recently reinforced by red-painted fittings proposed by Marcelo Ferraz and André Weiner, two young architects who worked with Lina throughout the duration of the works. Lina Bobardi increased the light in the Great Hall by replacing the lowest and most horizontal part of the roofing with glass bricks. In one of her early sketches, Lina Bobardi designed slopes and walkways linked to provide a permanent flow, a dream of freedom and movement that has remained one of the essentials. Neither walls nor doors, but a nice surprise, a stream. Only one workshop has been totally transformed. The gables are filled with a gigantic latticework. In the roof, the bricks have been replaced by glass. This space, open to both sides, is the theatre foyer. In this way, the architect balances the complete enclosure that houses the theatre. This requires walls, soundproofing, structure for bearing the weight of lighting, and sound installations. Thick walls, reinforced pillars, a space cut off from all natural light. The longitudinal space of the factory workshop prevented the use of a round Elizabethan theatre that was Lina Bobardi's dream. It would have made the slope of a seating tier too gradual. The architect set the tiers face to face so that one half of the audience looks at the other. Another way of maintaining conviviality. The factory workshops take up most of the plot. For the new buildings downhill, there was just a small site divided by a river. A complication that Lina Bobardi would turn into an advantage. Contrary to the minimal changes she had made to the old workshops, she made a move on the scale of the city. 3 volumes developed vertically against the horizontality of the old factory, foreshadowing the appearance of the future metropolis that she pictured in a sketch. It is the image of a citadel facing the city, a blunt statement. As Lina wanted to avoid juxtaposing the sports facilities, she stacked them, creating a simple volume, a concrete cube. On the ground floor, the swimming pool. On the first floor, a football pitch. On the second floor, a bodybuilding gym, a recent development. On the third floor, modular areas sometimes for handball, often for football. On the fourth floor, 2 modular courts. Every floor is the same. Open floor plans without pillars or load-bearing walls. Heavy floors rest on concrete box sections. The game space fills the whole area. And to identify them, Lena invented a simple color code related to the seasons. She preferred not to suggest a meeting on the 4th floor, but on winter, or that they should find each other on autumn. As part of her research into the brutal while rejecting the beautiful, Lena turned her back on traditional windows and designed holes. These she called prehistoric holes. Lena contrasted the brutalist architecture with the simplicity of free-shaped outlines, without any identifiable form, a brutality of design reinforced by the thickness of the wall in raw concrete, a sculptured void. The position of each opening was first of all discussed with the engineers so that the metal grid was widened at the place chosen for the hole. Then a thick, life-size polystyrene plug was made and positioned in the grid. After the concrete was poured, the polystyrene was removed, and there was the hole with the desired shape, as if punched out in one movement. In contrast to the brutality of the concrete, she clad the holes with large wooden trellises, the simple traditional method of circulating air in hot countries. The air passes from one side of the building to the other. The trellises reduce the glare from the sky and the violence of the reflections from the sun, and they stop the balls from flying out, to the great content of the sportsman. Lena had originally thought of a single building for the sports areas and the changing rooms, not knowing that the river zone was liable to flooding and not fit for building on. To keep the maximum possible area for the sports, she decided to put up a second building on the other side of the river for all the ancillary functions: entrances, vertical traffic, changing rooms and showers. Movement from one building to the other is by way of open-air gangways. The second building is also brutalist but more slender, a tower with 12 levels. Facing the city, the tower proclaims its utility. The emergency stairway that occupies 2 facades indicates the other vertical movements, the 2 lifts and metal spiral staircase. The final concrete volume is a 76-metre-high chimney. A fake chimney, a reminder of the factory's past, but used as a water tower. Just as raw as the 2 neighbouring volumes, opposing the engineers who proposed the rational use of cylindrical concrete sections, Lena Bobardi affirmed her intention of keeping them raw, preserving the traces of poured concrete with its effect of embroidery. Experimenting with planks and jute bags to retain the poured concrete, she proved that it was possible and cheaper. As for the river and the canal for the evacuation of rainwater, Lena simply covered them over. She built a long floor, a deck lined with plants, equipped with showers, a huge solarium at the foot of the concrete blocks. The space not fit to build on becomes a place for pleasure. Quite a symbol.